Luffy isn't strong enough yet to become Pirate King. As we now know, there is still a level above what he's currently capable of. That goes for his Devil Fruit, the voice of all things, but most importantly, for his Haki abilities. There are still new and even more incredible powers for Luffy to unlock and master before he can claim the throne of the pirate world and liberate it. The final power-ups he will get before the end of the story. And Eiichiro Oda, the author of One Piece, has just revealed what some of these powers are. Now, saying that Luffy still isn't powerful enough might admittedly sound like a quite bold statement after he just took out the strongest creature in the world. Kaido was physically the strongest emperor among the original Yonko with an incredible Devil Fruit power and next level Haki, let's be real. And Luffy managed to defeat him in a 1v1 battle. So what's the problem really? Well, as you well know, this fight says very little about the enemies that are still to come. Kaido's title of the strongest creature conveniently ignores two types of people: those he has never even fought before, and those who have just recently become stronger than him. Luffy, of course, falling into that latter category. Someone else who just recently has surpassed Kaido, at least as far as we know, is Luffy's arch nemesis, Marshal D. Teach. I'm sure you agree that when Luffy will inevitably face Blackbeard at some point in the story, it will be an even harder battle for our Straw Hats than the Beast Pirates. I mean, Blackbeard not only has two of the most powerful Devil Fruits ever in his possession, the Darkness Fruit and the Earthquake Fruit, but he also has been building an army of the strongest and most notorious pirates of this era, feeding all of them powerful Devil Fruits. In other words, Luffy right now would probably not be able to take on Blackbeard. Similarly, I think it's fair to argue that someone like Akainu is also not going to be an easy win for Luffy right now. I've discussed this in more detail in my video on the enemies that Luffy still has to face, but Luffy getting a chance to fight Sakazuki and getting revenge for his brother's death is almost guaranteed to happen at some point in the story, and he's sure to pose a real threat to anyone who would want to fight him 1v1. And then of course there is the man, the myth, the red-haired legend himself. Shanks has shown us over and over again that while he doesn't wield a Devil Fruit power himself, Haki-wise, he is on a completely different level from Kaido as well. And that already brings us to the first major power-up that Luffy will get now that Wano is finally over. And for that, I will also be getting into some of the details revealed in the special One Piece volume 4 billion that was distributed for the release of Film Red. It's not related to the movie itself really, but the info revealed about Shanks is legitimately canon, and it's probably more than we have ever learned about Shanks' true power in the regular story itself. So, Shanks' Conqueror's Haki is the strongest in the story. We already pretty much knew that much since his legendary encounter with Whitebeard. Not only did anyone outside of the top brass of Whitebeard's men faint, remember, those are men who have been sailing around the New World and are well accustomed to its dangers, but simply Shanks' presence there damages the Moby Dick, Whitebeard's flagship, physically. The planks literally crack under the pressure of his will. And this is Shanks coming for a peaceful chat, mind you. In other words, this is just his default mode. Luffy himself finally learned about the true potential of Conqueror's Haki during his fight with Kaido. He finally figured out how to use it for fighting. You can code yourself and your attacks in Conqueror's Haki to deal devastating blows or defend yourself against your opponent's attacks. In other words, it's pretty much what made Kaido and Big Mom almost indestructible. The user's kingly will manifests physically, which is why we see the sky split whenever two Yonko meet. This explains why Whitebeard's ship also took physical damage. However, Shanks takes all of this to the completely next level. His aura seems to be significantly larger than that of Luffy or Kaido, if it affects people and objects in a radius of 5 meters wherever he goes. And most terrifyingly, if you see him anywhere, like right now, and you are not subscribed to this channel, he will drink all your booze. True story. But Shanks isn't just passively oozing his Conqueror's Haki, he has complete control over it like no other character in the story really, as he impressively demonstrated during his drive-by of Wano. When Ryokugyu was coming for Luffy's head and facing off against Momo and the Scabbards, Shanks was able to identify Aramaki's precise location out of all the people on Wano at that moment and direct an ultra-precise burst of his Haki towards him across many miles from outside the country's borders. In fact, Shanks' Conqueror's Haki was so powerful that it paralyzed and scared Aramaki, forcing him to withdraw from Wano. Let me repeat that. Shanks used his Haki long range to scare off a Marine Admiral who had just proven his terrifying strength. That is a whole level above Luffy's and Kaido's pay grade at the moment. And it gets even crazier, because we've now learned about 2 other of Shanks' abilities from the special volume 4 billion that I guess is probably named after his bounty. Shanks has mastered an ability called Kenbun Goroshi, referring to observation Haki, which in Japanese is Kenbun Shoku Haki. And Goroshi simply means killing. In other words, Kenbun Goroshi is literally observation Haki killing. It's a technique that allows Shanks to use his Conqueror's Haki to prevent his opponent from using Future Sight, which is of course a complete game changer. Up to now, in any fight, it was always a question of who has the strongest Haki really. However, suddenly we know that it's possible to actually nullify another person's Haki using Conquerors. And I mean, as you've probably also just thought about, that means that someone like Katakuri, who has mastered his observation Haki, would pretty much be helpless against someone like Shanks, completely robbed of his biggest strength. I mean, especially for someone who has integrated such an ability into his fighting style, it must come as a complete shock to suddenly not be able to rely on your most potent ability anymore. And let's not forget that Luffy himself also relies quite a bit on Future Sight in his fights as well at this point. But that's not all, because Oda-sensei has also revealed that Shanks is able to coat his sword Griffon in a fiery aura whenever he fights against his opponents. And we do know for a fact that neither Shanks nor any of his men have eaten a devil fruit. So correct me if I'm wrong please, but to me that sounds like either one of 2 things. Either Shanks' sword has eaten a devil fruit itself, which would be pretty sick I guess as well, or Shanks is able to generate flames with his Haki. I mean, what does that remind you of? Exactly. Luffy's mysterious fire powers that he uses with Red Hawk and Red Rock. And so suddenly, in one sweeping go, Shanks has opened up an entire new level of power and fighting abilities in One Piece to us, and as you well know, Luffy won't be able to become Pirate King without reaching at least the same level as well. No matter if Shanks is actually chasing the One Piece himself, or whether he will simply test Luffy's power, I made a whole video on that as well if you want to watch that. Reaching this level of mastery over his Conqueror's Haki will be a must for Luffy now that he's moving towards the final islands. But of course, Haki isn't the only thing that our captain still has room to grow in. There are still a bunch of other power-ups waiting for us as well, like with Luffy's Devil Fruit for instance. Yes, Luffy has just awakened his fruit and used his Gear 5 for the first time, which he himself actually called his pinnacle. However, Luffy's Devil Fruit awakening was active for simply a couple of minutes at most at the peak of his fight with Kaido. And so I think it's very fair to say that Luffy has not mastered the true potential of the Nika Devil Fruit quite yet. What we saw him do with it, yes, was incredibly impressive, absolutely, but I think that there must be more to its true power and potential for the Gorosei to want to erase it from history. The ability to shape its surroundings and the fact that Luffy has been revealed to be a zone fruit just open up so many possibilities. What exactly is Gear 5 even? Is it Nika Fruit Awakening? Is it simply Luffy's transformation into the animal / Nika? What does his hybrid form look like? As you can see, there are still so many unanswered questions and things that we don't know yet about the Nika Fruit. And Luffy himself doesn't even know yet that he is a zone fruit user. And And so once he finds out, he will be able to do so much more with it than right now. I think we really only have seen the beginning of what this fruit is truly capable of, and why it plays such an important role in taking down the world government and changing the world. Then of course there is the voice of all things. This power is still incredibly mysterious and seems to be even rarer than having Conqueror's Haki. Luffy so far has only been using it in a very limited way. He's able to detect people's true feelings and intentions and is able to communicate with animals. Which, don't get me wrong, is a pretty big deal. But there must be more to this mysterious power as well that might well be related to the D-Clan itself, since Roger already was able to use it. We do know, for example, that Roger was able to understand the poneglyphs to a certain degree at least using this ability as well. So what other things is it capable of doing? It might actually be the key to finding and using the One Piece, kind of like the secret ability of the D-Clan. And let's of course not forget the ancient weapons as well. We know that Poseidon, Pluton, and Uranus are all connected to Joy Boy and the Void Century. All three are powerful enough to destroy the world. Terrible weapons that can be used for either good or bad, but in the end, it sounds like Luffy will be needing them in some way or form in order to fulfill his dream and create a new world where everyone is free to live a happy life. These three weapons are truly mysterious. However, we might already know what their secret is and how they will work. These weapons might actually be much more complex and sophisticated than we all could have ever dreamed. They seem to include genetic engineering, gigantuous monsters, and colossal vessels. And if you really want to learn how they might work, you really should not skip this video right here.